Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. So, have you ever thought, what if you get to know when someone opens an email that you have sent? As far as I know, there are no email clients which let you know when someone has opened and read our emails. But still, there is a way to do that, and it is actually pretty common too. We can track when an email has been opened by using images. Email clients which support image rendering must download the image first from a server. This in itself can be used by the server to know that the image has been accessed. But images are static resources, right? And we have no way of linking their access to any person. Well, not really. There are analytics frameworks available out there which can let us know when someone has opened an email just by knowing when a static image resource is being accessed can tell us so many things like the time of opening of the email, the person's email checking pattern and habits, interval between successive email message openings, etc. Well, of course, none of this is possible if the email client does not support the loading of images from external locations, or if the person has disabled images altogether in their email client. But still, a vast majority of people don't do that, and this leaves a huge number of users for online marketers and sellers to track and perform analytics on their email reading habits. Anyways, this was just the preface, and the possibilities are really endless over here. And what I will do is I will show you how you can create your own little email tracking system. But first, I will show you what the finished example looks like so that you can relate with it as to how we are going to eventually code it. So this is what the finished example looks like. Over here, I am a seller who has a list of email addresses of people who I think should be interested in my products. I want to send them promotional emails and I want to know if they have even read my emails or not. What I will do is I will create a list of such people and I will assign unique IDs to them, like this one. Suppose we have 4 users, John, Steve, Sam and Kelvin. What I have done is I have assigned IDs to them, so 1 is for John, 2 is for Steve and so on. When they will open my promotional email, then their email client will download the image which is linked with the user and also with their ID. The image will be associated with each person's ID, and when the email client will access the server to download it, then our code will know which person has opened the email. Let me show you how it is working. So this code example has been hosted on a free hosting service provider website. I will let you know what it is. We will also need a temporary email address to receive the emails, which can be accessed using this tempmail.org, and we will also need a temporary email ID to send our message as well, so that we can recreate the production setting of sending and receiving emails on the internet. So I am using the gorillamail.com to send an email from any temp email ID. So what I will do is first I will compose the email address which will have the image and also the associated ID of the person to which I am sending my promotional email. So this is the promotional email. I'm just going to copy and paste the subject and body values. Okay, so this is our promotional email. Notice the URL of the email address. Let me just zoom this entire page for you. This is our message, please buy our amazing product, and this is the image which is going to be loaded by the email client of the user or the person. So we have the ID 4. Now 4 is actually associated with a person, and that person is Kelvin. So whenever Kelvin will open this email message, then Kelvin's email client will download this image from the server, and the server code will get to know who is actually accessing this static image resource. So let's just provide Kelvin's email address. In our case, this is this temporary email ID. I'm just going to copy it by clicking on this button, and then let's go to the gorillamail.com again, and then let's just paste Kelvin's email ID And now I'm just going to click on the send button. This is a CAPTCHA which we need to provide. Now let's just check if Calvin has received the email or not. So Calvin has actually received the email, and what I will do is I will open up this email message. But before I do that, I'm going to show you this page again, and I'm just going to refresh it. So notice that Calvin does not have the email opened, so there is still no over here. And now when I will open this email message, then this image will load. Actually this image is quite big, but that's not the point over here. The image has been loaded by this email client. And now let's just refresh the page again to see if Calvin has opened the email or not. And when I have refreshed the page, then no has been switched to yes, which simply means that Calvin has opened the email. Now let's just test for Sam too. So Sam's ID is 3. So what I will do is I will again go to this gorillamail.com and let's just compose another message. We need to do the same thing again. Let's just copy the subject and body. So now instead of using the ID 4, we are now going to use the ID which is associated with user Sam. So Sam's ID is 3, and I'm just going to replace this 4 with a 3, and then let's just again use the same email ID. And let's just send this promotional email to. And now let's check if the email has been received by Sam or not. So this is a new email, and let's just go and refresh the page again. So Sam still has no for email opened status. And now when I will click on this email message, then the image will be loaded by the email client, and let's just refresh the page again. So now you can see that Sam has also yes over here. Now this is all happening because our code is tracking which users are opening their emails by simply knowing which image ID is being provided to the server when the image as a static resource is being downloaded. Now let's start to actually build this small analytics engine of ours to track the email openings by our potential customers. So this is Visual Studio 2017, and I'm just going to create a new project. This is going to be an ASP.NET Core web application. Let's just name it track email, and then let's click on OK. And this is going to be an MVC application, and this is just going to be a simple application. We don't need anything else inside it, so let's just click on OK. Alright, so the first thing which I will do is I will just run this for the first time. So this is the default template of this MVC application. What I will do is I will just remove all the things which we are not going to need. Let's just go to the views folder, and then in the home index.cshtml, I'm just going to remove everything from over here, and instead I'm just going to provide a message or a heading, email open status. Now what we will need is we are going to need a controller class to actually receive the image download requests from the email clients. For that purpose, I'm going to go to the controllers folder, and then let's just add a new controller. This is going to be an empty MVC controller, and I'm going to name it image controller. Let's just add it. So this is an empty controller class. We are going to need some more assemblies and namespaces in this class, so let's just do that. I'm going to rename this index method, and let's just call it get.img. So get.img will actually be used to return the images from the server, and this is also going to accept an argument for the ID of the person, so that we will know which person is actually accessing the image. Now, so before we do anything else over here, we are going to need an image as a promotional image for our email. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up this folder. Now in this images folder, I'm going to paste the image which we are going to use. So I downloaded this image from Adobe Spark, which is a great tool to create such kind of graphics, and this belongs to a template. Alright, so now we have our image. Now we can write the code to actually return this image to the browser whenever this controller and this get.img action will be called. For that purpose, what I will do is first I will simply fetch the path of the directory which contains the image. So var equals to string.format, and then the image is in the www root folder and it is in the images folder. Now we are going to fetch the path of our root by using the hosting environment dependency. For that purpose, what we need to do is first we need to inject the hosting environment dependency into our controller class. So let's just create a new private read-only field, and this is going to be of the type iHosting environment. Let's just call it _host. So now in the constructor of this image controller, what we will do is we will inject the dependency of this iHosting environment field. So iHosting environment, let's just call it host, and then _host equals to host, and that's pretty much it. Now we can use the host to fetch the path of this images folder. So _host dot content root path. Now to get the image path, what we will do is let's create another member over here equals to path dot combine. We are going to use this dir, and then we are going to provide the name of the image. So the name is image.jpg, and now we will need to check if the image exists or not. To do that, what we will do is we will create another member over here. Let's call it image file equals to new file info, and then let's provide the image path. So if image file dot exists, so now we can return the image as a file, and what we will need to do is we will need to provide the byte contents of the image file. So system.io.file.read all bytes, and then we can provide the image path, and then we can provide the content type of the file which we are returning. So this is a JPG file, so image /JPG, and that should be pretty much it to return the image. So I'm just going to build this code, and then we will access this controller's root to see if we are actually getting the image in the browser or not. Okay, so this is our application, and what I will do is let's write the name of the controller and then name of the action, and then let's just provide any value over here because we are not actually doing anything with the ID associated with the person. So let's just provide any number like 1. So we are actually getting the image in the browser by using the code. So let's just close this window now, and now it's time to actually associate this string ID with the person who is actually opening the email, so that we will know who has opened it, and then we will update their status. So normally what we need to do is we need to create a database to associate users with their IDs, but in our case this is a very small application, so I'm just going to use a XML file. So let's just create a new folder into this www root folder and add a new folder, and let's just call it data. Now in this data folder, what I will do is I will create a new XML file, and let's just add a new item XML file, and let's just call it data.xml. Now in this XML file, I'm going to add content for the users to which we need to send our promotional email messages. I'm just going to paste the data over here. So as you can see in this structure, we have the name, the ID, and the opened status, which is either yes or no. So I'm just going to put no for all of them. So now it's time to set the opened status whenever any ID associated with these users has been used to fetch our image. For that purpose, what we will do is we will kind of use the same structure to access the file, but then we will also need to traverse the XML file to find which users are associated with the ID being provided over here, and then we will need to update those users. So let's just get to it. So the first thing which I will do is I'm going to use the same code over here to access the path of the data folder. And then you know what, let me just zoom in this code a little bit so that you might be able to see them more clearly. Now this dir will first have the path of the data folder which contains the data.xml. Now the first thing that we will do is we will first need a flag to indicate that we have saved the XML or not. So let's just call it save XML equals to false. Now I'm going to copy this code from over here, and then instead of image I'm going to put XML over here to indicate that we are working with an XML file. So data.xml and then the XML path. Alright, so if XML file dot exists, if we have the XML file, then we will work on it to find the user associated with this ID. So first let's just create an XML document. Doc equals to new XML document. Now let's just load the XML from the data.xml file. So doc.load, provide the path of the XML file. Then we need to fetch the list of nodes. So XML node list nodes equals to doc.select nodes, and then we need to select all the nodes for the users. So I'm just going to provide the path of the user node from this XML file. So select nodes, the path is data, which is the parent of the user, data and then user. Alright, so now we will iterate over all of these nodes to find to which node this ID belongs. So for each XML node in XML node and nodes. Okay, let me just scroll it. So let's just fetch the element, the XML element from the node. So XML element, let's just call it EL equals to, we need to typecast the node into the XML element. So let's just do that, and then we will fetch the node list from this element. So again the same thing which we did before, XML node list, and then let's just call it child nodes equals to node dot child nodes. Now we know the ID of the different nodes or the child nodes inside this user over here. So the name is the first one, ID is the second one, open is the third one. So we need to be concerned with this ID child. So what we will do is we will simply check if child nodes, and then we will provide the ID of the ID child node, which is 1. We will compare its inner text with the ID which is being provided as an argument with this action get img. So if the inner text of this ID node is the ID which we are receiving over here, then what we will do is we are going to simply set the value of this opened node or the inner text of this open node from no to yes. So child nodes and then 2 dot inner text equals to yes. Let's also set the flag save XML equals to true, And then let's just break out of this loop. Now we also need to save the XML file again if there are any changes. So if save XML is true, then what we will do is we will simply call XML document dot save, and that should be pretty much it. Actually, we also need to provide the path of the XML file, which is over here. And I guess that's pretty much it that we need to do to check if any image associated with any person has been loaded or not. Now it's time to test our code. Alright, so what I will do is I will again open the previous URL, the image, and then get img, and then one which is associated with the user, and then I will just open up the image. Now let's check if any changes have been done to the XML file or not. So as you can see over here, for John, the opened status has been changed to yes. Let's try for another user, like for Kelvin, the ID is 4. So instead of 1, we are going to provide the ID of 4. Press enter, image has been loaded. So no has been changed to yes. So our code is working perfectly. Now it's time to actually see this list on a web page instead of opening up the XML again and again. So for that, what I will do is I will use the data table control, and then we will populate that control with the data from this XML. For that purpose, we are going to use the home controller. So let's just open it. In the home controller, we are going to read the XML file, and then we are going to write the information or data onto the view which is being returned from this index action. So the code to read the XML file is kind of same, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. So over here we have a class which is user, which has name and email open properties. We are going to use this class to act as a row for the table. Now over here, first we are fetching the path of the data folder, and then we are creating a new XML document object from the XML file path, and then we are just creating a list, and in that list we are adding user objects for each user which is there in this data.xml file. It is pretty simple and straightforward. We are simply assigning the values using the indexes of the username and the email opened status from the first and the last child node. Now after we have created the list, what we need to do is we need to write this list to the view data so that it can be accessed from the view when it has been returned to the browser. So what we will do is we will simply create a string field or a string member. Let's just call it user JSON string, and we are going to use the JSON convert dot serialize object method, and then we are going to provide the users list as an argument over here. This JSON convert can be accessed by using the newtonsoft.json namespace dependency. And then finally we are going to assign this to the view data. So view data and then users equals to user JSON string. Now we need to write some more code to the index.cshtml file. What we need to do is we need to create a script tag first, and then in this script tag first I'm going to fetch the users list. So users equals to json.parse, because we are actually providing a string which is the serialized JSON string of the list object. That's why we need to use json.parse, and then we are going to use the html.raw function, and then we will provide the view data which we are using to send the or pass the user list to the view. So users, and then let's just stop at that, because after this we need to fetch the script dependency of the data table which we are going to use. So you can actually search for the CDN links for the data table and the jQuery So I'm not going to do that because it's fairly simple. I'm just going to paste their links, and these are the CDN links for jQuery, the datatables.net, and also the style sheet for the data table. And now let's just create a data structure for the table data. So user table data, it is an empty array. So what we are going to do is we are just going to iterate over the users collection, and so users dot for each, we are going to provide a function which will have the arguments for the individual user and also the index. Alright, so let's just push a new object to this user tables data array. So user table data dot push, and we are actually going to push another array instead of an object because it is the format which is required for the data table to work. So user dot name and user dot email opened. So the names of this property is the same for the user object which we have created from this user class, the name and the email opened string properties. So now we have added them. What we will finally do is we will need to add a div which will act as a content. So actually not a div, we need to use a table because this is a data table. So table ID equals to, let's name it content, and then you know what, that's pretty much it. Now all we need to do is we need to fetch the reference of this content by using its ID. So content and then the data table if I'm not wrong. So alright, so now we need to provide the information for the data which we are going to use, which is this user table data, and then we will also need to provide the names of the columns. So for columns we are going to provide an array. Now the individual columns will need to be in their own objects. We are just going to use the title property, so title and then the name, and then I'm just going to, you know what, copy this object. The second column is going to be for the email open status, so email opened, and I guess that should be pretty much it. Alright, so this is going to be an object actually. Okay, now it's kind of readable, the table data and the columns. So now it's time to build the code and run the home controller to see if we are fetching the list of the users or not. Alright, so the list of the users is being fetched. Now all we need to do is we need to access the image by providing the ID of some other user. So we will use the ID of Sam. So Sam's ID is 3, and let's just access the image associated with this ID. To do that, I'm going to use the same URL. Instead of 1, I'm going to use 3. Press enter, go back, refresh the page. So now Sam is now yes for the email open status. So our code is working to track if any user has opened the email or not. Now all we need to do is we need to upload this application to the free hosting provider server, which is myasp.net. So this is the myasp.net website which you can use to temporarily create hosting space for testing your applications. I don't know what its capabilities are. It works for small examples, so that's why I use it from time to time whenever I need to do some the actual server side production setting testing. So let's just log into it. I have already created a test account. You can do that too, it's pretty easy. So let's just provide the captcha. Alright, so this is the control panel, so let's just go to it. Now in the control panel there will be a URL which we can use to access the hosted site, but we have not hosted our code yet. So what I will do is I will build our code and I will publish it, and then we will push the published code to the hosting space by using FTP. So let's just do that. Alright, so now to publish our code, what I will do is I will simply right click on this track email project and then click on this publish button. Now we need to publish this to a folder, and this is the path of the folder. Let's just click on the publish button. So this is now published. So let's just check if it has been published or not. Alright, so now in the bin folder in the release, there is this folder with the publish name, and there is our application. Now we need to upload this entire content using FTP to the hosting space, which we have from the free hosting provider. So to upload the files of this application, the published code, so to say, I'm going to use FileZilla, which will push the published code using FTP to the hosting space. So let's just copy the source path and then let's just paste it over here. Alright, so these are the contents. Now we need to connect using FTP, and I'm just going to put the values for the host username and password, and let's just connect to it. Alright, so now we need to push all of these files to this site1 folder. So I have been using the same location to test the previous code. So what I will do is I'm just going to select everything and then I'm just going to drag it. Actually, before that, I'm just going to delete everything from over here. Okay, so it's empty now. So this means that we can push our own published code. Select everything and then just drag it over here. Now it is going to take a while. Alright, so all the files have been uploaded to the server, and now it's time to test our application on the live server. So let's just do that. So this is the URL which we need to open to access our website. I'm just going to copy and paste it in a new tab. So our application is running perfectly fine. The XML has been fetched from the server with the status of email opened. So as you can see, the Calvin, John and Sam's status is yes for email opened, because while we were testing, we had modified the XML file and I didn't restore the XML file. Well, no worries, we still have our good old Steve left with us with the status of no, and we are going to use Steve's ID to check if Steve has opened the email or not. Let's get back to the previous Gorilla mail to compose a new email, and then we are going to provide the subject and the body. And now we need to replace this 4 with the ID of Steve. So Steve's ID is 2. So let's type 2 over here, and then we will need to put the temp email address of temp email. Let's just copy the email address and we need to paste it over here in the to field, and then let's click on send. The message has been sent. Okay, so here is the email. I'm just going to open it. So the image is not being loaded, and let's see what the issue over here is. So something is not right over here. Let's just try changing the ID, and I'm just going to use an ID which is not associated with any person. So for 5 we are getting the image, but for 2 we are not. So it looks like this is some kind of read-write issue for the XML file. So what I will do is I will go to the files and then let's navigate to the XML file, and for the file permission, this is read only and we have to set it read and write. Click on update, and now let's check it again. Go back to the list, open the email again. Now image is being loaded this time, and it's time to refresh this page. So the status of Steve has been set to yes from no. This means that our code is working perfectly fine. So this is a very small example, and there are lots of different ways in which this can be improved. It simply depends on your own requirements. But if you are actually serious about using this functionality for your application and for your mailing list, then I would suggest you to use a dedicated email analytics and tracking frameworks, and there are so many available out there. The good thing about using a third-party system instead of creating your own is that the third-party systems are kind of thoroughly tested by the developers and the testers who have created them, and you don't really have to waste your time and energy in creating your own system. Still, if you are feeling courageous and adventurous, then you can try to do something like this. But this small example will not work. It may work for some people, but not for everyone. Still, I hope that you have understood what I have tried to explain in this video, and maybe it is informative and interesting for you guys. If it is, then I would like to believe that this video has served its purpose. Do let me know what you think about it and if you have any questions. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, have a great day and happy coding.